Welcome to the Football Garbage Time NFL podcast. My name is Wong, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Football Garbage Time. And with me is my OG co-host, Ryan Whitfield. Hey, Ryan, I know you feel like crap right now, but how you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm surviving. We'll make it through. I'm not telling you I'm a consummate professional, but here I am putting in the work, sick or not. No days off, so you're all welcome.
Well, it's a good thing we didn't have our old co-host Joey on the line, because you'd be talking about how you're carrying the podcast and having back pains as well as being sick as a dog. So thank goodness we don't have that Joey, who doesn't show up on the podcast anymore. Just FYI.
All right. Probably just don't have him in general.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got a lot to talk about because and this is going to be a little bit of a special edition because we're going to be hitting hard on some of the free agents that we think are going to be most impactful, because there have been so many free agent signings over the last couple of days. It's insane. I mean, it's just like a flood. I could barely keep up. And not all of them are good and not all of them are bad, but there are a few that we think are going to be most impactful so far, at least through the first couple of days of free agent signings. So let's go ahead and talk about that in a minute, and let's get that rolling. All right, let's talk about that. Let's talk about this. All the free agents that are out there, all the trades that are going on, insane amount of movement in the NFL right now. Ryan, give us the ones that you think are most impactful that you've seen so far.
Yeah, so I don't know most impactful, but I think the most interesting. The first one's definitely most impactful, and it's really a two-front side. The Laremy Tunsil trade to Washington. I love what Washington did last year. I know you're going to touch on Milton here in a few, but I see the Patriots kind of following the same blueprint that the Commanders did last year. Now they got the quarterback in the same year, but outside of that, the Commanders signed a bunch of mid-level or mid-tier free agents last year because their roster was so depleted. They then drafted 5 starters, so you got to have a good draft to go along with it. CC, Elliott Wolf, and then this year they enabled them to go make the big splash moves of Debo and Laremy Tunsil. I know Tunsil didn't have his best season last year. From all the advanced metrics, he was down a bit in terms of his from a production standpoint. But that's in a league that's starved for left tackles. In a league where some of these free agent left tackles are going for stupid money, and buyer beware on anyone who spends big money on Cam Robinson. It's hard to do much better if you're the Commanders, and they've done the last 2 years, and now to add Tunsil in there. And then on the other side of it, as bad as again, a down year for him, but still the best offensive lineman on a bad Texans offensive line. I don't understand what Houston's thought process is there.
Right. No, I don't understand it either.
It's not like that. There's a bunch of good linemen out there that they went and redistributed the money, out to other guys and stuff. Like they're just inarguably getting worse at the position in a year again where there's not really a great tackle in the draft class. There's no Joe Alt Jr. in this draft class. So, I don't get what they're thinking, but a great move for the Commanders, in my estimation. Do you want to touch on that? You want me to go to my second one?
Well, let me comment really quickly on that, on both sides. And we'll start with the Houston Texans first, because the fact that obviously this was a big trade for the Commanders and Texans. The Commanders got Laremy Tunsil in a 2025 4th-round pick. The Texans got in return a 2025 3rd-round and 7th-round pick and a 2026 2nd and 4th-round pick. So they got plenty of picks there. But I'm with you, Ryan. This is a head scratcher for me and the Texans. Last year they were 22nd in total yards on offense, 19th in total scoring, down significantly from 2023. And that was basically because their protection sucked. And this was the best guy they had on that O-line. So letting him go to the Commanders is a big loss for them. On the Commander side, I absolutely agree. And on one of your favorite sites, PFF, they graded Washington as the 22nd in pass blocking and 28th in run blocking last year. So Jaden Daniels ended up being sacked 47 times. That's good for 6th most sacks in the NFL last season. You got to find a way to get this better. And let's face it, the Commanders are trying to keep pace with the Eagles right now, and they have to upgrade and get Jaden Daniels. And Jaden Daniels is controllable, right? He in terms of contract, not in terms of personality. In terms of contract, he's controllable right now, right? He's cheap. He's on his rookie contract. They got to build around him. They got to give him a chance to win, and they got to keep up with those Eagles. Now, the problem I have with this is that they've done really nothing on the defensive side, and they get gashed on the defensive side. And the Eagles, they dominate, and they re-sign Saquon Barkley to a record contract, and I think they're going to run all over them again. So it's not just offense, but in terms of getting Jaden Daniels the help he needs, I absolutely agree. This is very, very impactful to them. Huge move for the Commanders. So you want to switch it over to your second guy now?
Yeah, before I touch on that, I'll just say, I mean, this is a weak draft. I think anyone, all of us that are deep in the draft, draftology stuff like you and I,
right,
on our site.
Other than running backs, and I know you're hating on running backs.
Well, but that's my point, is that interior offensive linemen, running backs, safeties, run defending linebackers, and defensive tackles, there are actually no shortage of. That is super deep. So for the Commanders, I mean, yeah, you're not going to get a J.C. Horn in this draft. But there's plenty that the Commanders could basically go all middle of their defense on this draft, and they'll be fine, in my opinion. So
right.
You can't get tackles. You can't get a Deebo Samuel. And I know Deebo's washed up and, injury prone and out of shape and all that. But I mean, him as the number 2 body carry, you're not going to find every single receiver in this draft has question marks. I saw a report the other day said that that an unnamed source executive said that as each team does a deep drive on Tet, that he keeps falling further and further down the board. People had him as a top 10 pick. He might not go to the end of the first round now. Like Travis Hunter is considered more of a corner than a wide receiver. I mean, it's just not a great. All the skill positions that were
not
used
like
to
last year.
Over. It's not like that. It's a meat and potatoes draft. Now those guys are a ton. I think it was Baldinger or maybe it was somebody else that said that they got graded 12. No, last year they had 12. This year they have 24 graded starting caliber defensive tackles in this draft.
Wow.
So
wow.
Commanders can do some damage there.
That's true.
All right, my second one. This one is a little bit more of a. I just believe that certain guys on the downturn of their career can land in a good situation that can put them back on. So I'm talking Joey Bosa. It's actually. It took me. I mean, he's only 29 years old, but I can't believe how long he's been in the league. When I was looking at his stats earlier today, that he's been in since 2016, which is wild. But I mean, the Chargers were still the San Diego Chargers when he was a rookie. So
he's one of the last San Diego Chargers left.
So as I've long said on this show, though, they'll always be the San Diego Chargers. So they actually
right.
But yeah, Bosa to there, and just. It's exactly the role Von Miller's played the last couple of years, where they've moved on there. They'll bring in Bosa to kind of be that guy. I've seen a lot of people tweeting out since that signing that he was really bad last year, and I haven't looked at the advanced metrics on the PFF like his win rates or his his pressure rates or anything like that. But it's not just last year. He's got a combined 14 sacks over the last 3 seasons. And he played 5 games, 9 games, and 14. So he hasn't played a full season since 2021. And as I say that, 2021 might have been the first 17-game season. I can't remember. So even that was probably 1 game short. So if that's the case, he hasn't played a full season since 2019. So there's injury concerns there. He's always been injury prone. But I just like him in a scheme that typically is pretty good, pretty aggressive up front. And I think he'll be playing some winning football and have a chance to have a bounce back season for the Buffalo Bills. So like you said, you mentioned the Commanders on that rookie contract. I mean, we're seeing a lot of these teams change over. Like the Bills are in that spot now where Josh Allen gets paid, so they got to be creative. And again, unless you're in the top 4. And I say the top 4 because I'm still holding out hope that Abdul falls to 4. Unless you're in that spot, there's not really an elite pass rusher in this draft. It is Abdul Carter, and then it's pretty much nobody. Now you got some guys that can get after from the inside, but that's why this free agency period has been so interesting to me. High level is because I think even the receiver market. DK. I mean, DK is proven in his history in the NFL so far that he doesn't have an advanced route tree. He runs basically one route. He's a one-trick pony. So like, there's just not a lot of skill guys.
Oh, and of course there goes Ryan. So I know exactly what he's saying when he talks about those types of guys. And of course, Joey Bosa is one of those guys that we are always have our ears up for because of the fact that he had so many Pro Bowl appearances, 5-time Pro Bowler. He gets this 1-year deal with the Buffalo Bills for $12.6 million. That totally makes sense to me. I mean, 1-year deal. There's not a whole lot you have to worry about there. They did just release actually all-pro pass rusher Von Miller. So taking Bosa in there, yeah, it kind of makes sense. I mean, he does have a history of being quite good. 2016, obviously, he recorded 10.5 sacks there. So he's definitely one of those guys who can be very impactful on defense. But as you said, Ryan, he is one of those guys who has some injury concerns. And that's something that I am a little bit worried about. He's missed 23 combined games over the last 3 seasons due to injury. And that's something that I think we'll have to see improve for them to get their value out of that $12.6 million that they're paying him for that 1-year contract. So there's a lot of upside, but there's a lot of downside as well with Joey Bosa. Name value obviously carries him a long way.
Yeah, this app hates me. I don't know what that was, but I'm back. But I totally agree. But
we don't hate you. I thought you were just annoyed with me suddenly, and you're like, I'm out of here. I'm done. I saw your Bears shirt. I'm out of here.
No, I think it's the right kind of team. Like when I look at teams like DeAndre Hopkins to the Ravens, not super exciting other than that's a Ravens, so that makes sense, right? So these name value guys make sense when you're a team that's kind of built to win now and you got to go for it. So
right.
Like if your Bears or my Patriots signed Joey Bosa, I'd be like, oh, that's not what we're looking for at this stage in his career. But yeah, for a 1-year prove it deal, he'll be motivated this year. And because he's 29, like we said, so he's got one last chance to produce and have a big year and go get one more multi-year good contract. So I think it's a win-win on both sides, and I actually expect Bosa to produce this year.
Yeah, and arguably last year his best year in a while because he did play 14 games last year and he did make the Pro Bowl again. I mean, for whatever that's worth. So certainly there is an upswing, and that's a winning location, right? I mean, the Buffalo Bills poised to win right now, as you say. So it certainly can be impactful if he stays on the field. All right, so Joey Bosa, I agree, and I said this last week on the podcast as well. I think he's a guy who has a lot of upside, but there's a lot of risk attached to him. So a 1-year deal makes sense to me. So as far as the guys that I'm looking at, I mean, I don't think it's going to be any big surprise to anybody that I'm going to call out Drew Dalman, the center that was signed by the Bears, to a 3-year contract for $42 million, $28 million guaranteed from the Falcons. He's probably the best center in free agency right now. So they had to do it. I mean, Ben Johnson said that in order for him to have fun, he has to make sure that his quarterback is confident and feels safe back there in the pocket. Caleb was sacked a NFL league leading amount of times last year. So if he wants to survive another season, I mean, it's a wonder he's not injured right now. So they did everything they could, right? I mean, they went out and they managed to get Jonah Johnson. They also got Joe Tunney, and they managed to now pick up Drew Dalman, the best center in free agency, at least. Whether he holds up or not, I don't know, but it certainly is everything you need to do in order to make the team go. It's now a question of whether they can get the offense going around it and whether there's anything else that can be done in the draft in order to shore up that offense. I think there's some discussion now that they've filled out that offensive line that they can go and get Ashton Jenney. And I know that you would hate that because, getting a running back in the first round is totally anti-Ryan. But I will just say Saquon Barkley kind of proving doubters wrong, but just not on the team that drafted him. So who knows?
Oh, wait.
Who knows?
What was that last part you said?
Not on the team that drafted him. I understand.
Okay, so the team that spent the first round capital on him didn't get the fruits of that labor. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, well, that's the Giants, though. They were really, really good at screwing up the draft, just like my Bears do. So, I'm not saying that's
another big first round running back who went to a Super Bowl 2 years ago. God, what was his name? Christian McCaffrey. Was he drafted by the 49ers or was he drafted by Carolina?
Fair point.
If you can get him on that second contract and it's an addition to a great team, fine. But when you're rebuilding a team, no. So your Bears should not do that. If there was ever a draft to do it. But I would take Cam Scatabo, whatever his name is.
Yeah, you can get him a little later in the draft.
I'll take him in the 4th round. I'll take the kid Trayvon Henderson out of Ohio State in the 3rd round. There's just so many other options. Give me Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th round all day. But whatever. Your Bears do what they do. That's fine.
That's fair. But that being said, I will say that I think this is a very impactful signing for the Bears. I mean, they have not done a good job of focusing on the offensive line in recent years. They just focused on getting skilled players and getting your quarterback. And we've had failure after failure at the quarterback position. I mean, I still think Caleb has the goods to be a franchise quarterback. This gives him the ability to actually stand out there and wait for his routes to develop as opposed to running for his life the entire game. So we'll see how it goes, but I think this is an A-plus signing for the Bears, and it's reasonable to pay that type of money for a guy who's proven it time and time again. The next guy I know we will be at odds with a little bit, and that's Davante Adams. And I know you hate diva receivers. There probably is no bigger diva right now than Davante Adams in terms of receivers. The Rams signed him for 2 years for $46 million after letting go of Cooper Kupp. In 2024, Davante Adams actually pretty darn good, 1,063 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. But of course, Aaron Rodgers was forcing him every pass. So, take it with a grain of salt. But I do think that the Rams are the best place for him. I think this will be impactful for them to put him opposite Puka Nacua. I think that he's familiar with the offensive scheme, having spent time in Green Bay playing in former Rams OC Matt LaFleur's system. So I think there is some potential here. And of course, McVay was able to get something out of OBJ during the Rams Super Bowl winning season. I think he should be able to get something out of Davante Adams as well. So I do think this is going to be an impactful signing. I do have some questions about how much better he is than Cooper Kupp. I think he's a different player than Cooper Kupp, and so it may make sense. It'll be interesting to see how this develops, but Matt Stafford's coming back, so get him some weapons. They got to win now because they're getting pretty old. So I don't hate this deal with Davante Adams. What do you think about those first two? Because I got another guy that I want to talk about, which is I know you're going to want to talk about as well. Drew Dalman, the center for the Bears, Davante Adams, wide receiver to the Rams.
Yeah, I'll keep saying it all offseason. I think that for the teams I don't think we're going to see a bunch of big movement teams this year because of the lack of skill positions in free agency, skill position players in free agency and in the draft. So I'll just keep banging that drum. So teams like our two teams, the situation they're in, I think building it with a 2-year forecast in mind makes more sense. So I'm okay with building inside out. And so I look at what the Bears did, and I think that, solidifying the middle of that line makes a lot of sense. Excuse me. But Caleb.
Okay.
Caleb's still responsible for a good portion of those sacks last year. So let's see. The protection should be better. Definitely was on that line at times too, but he's got to improve there as well. Right. Davante. Sorry, Jesus.
I know the Dayquil's running out. Yeah, I know the Dayquil's running out. I've been there before, man. It's at a tail end. That last hour kind of sucks.
And I just got the post nasal drip happened. I can't I'm choking to try to talk. But
cool. So everybody can envision that. Everyone envision post nasal drip for the rest of the podcast.
It's terrible. I'm dying. But I think Davante, I just think his priorities are wrong. And I don't know this, but I heard a couple rumors or reports going into this that he was looking for a West Coast team and he was looking for a place where he could get his targets. That's just loser behavior to me. So do I think it'll work? Yes, because I think he shows up and he plays. And I think that he'll be a good fit in that offense, that scheme. I think he's got way more left in the tank than Cooper Kupp. He's still got way more explosiveness. Like you said, he produced in New York last year. The Vegas New York split last year. But again, this is a guy who went to Vegas and then was mad that Vegas sucked. Like, what did you think was going to happen? First of all, they've always sucked. Or most of our lives they sucked. And then he goes to the Jets to follow Aaron Rodgers. And this is a side story, but all you who are still on the Aaron Rodgers train, how beholden are you? I see people posting, that if Aaron Rodgers goes to Minnesota, he's gonna put the best offensive stats this year. Are you all stupid? As little respect as possible, as most disrespectful possible. Are you all fucking stupid? Because this is Davante Adams. So this is what I'm saying. I just don't trust him as a where his head is at and where his priorities are at, because he went to New York to follow Aaron Rodgers. I've been saying for 5 fucking years that he was the problem in Green Bay. Then he went to New York and it didn't work, and now people are still talking about it. So yeah, I'm sorry, that has a blowback effect on Davante Adams' thought process to me. I look at him and go, this is a guy who can get it. And so then when you factor in he's caring about his targets and being on the West Coast, it's dude, you're 34. Do you want to win a title before you're out of the league or not? Because there were better options. I keep saying this. If I was a receiver like that, I would go and say, I've made enough money, and I would walk to Kansas City and say, veteran minimum, whatever you need. I want to play with Patrick Mahomes and go win a Super Bowl. I don't understand. So it's just that. That's where I stand with Davante. And that's why I don't like receivers. I feel like too many receivers are like that. That they never really hit that spot. So many other players across all sports, but in football, at every other position are I just want to go win a ring. And I never hear receivers say that. Receivers just want to hang on and make as much money as they possibly can.
It's the way it is. You know,
Like,
they want to be
so
in the
I just,
spotlight.
so I just
But
think
this
it's
is,
really good.
I think this is a little different though, because so I mean, he is a California native, so going back to Los Angeles, going West Coast, that makes sense to me. And I think that McVay has shown he can handle some of those big personalities, like he handled OBJ. And I think, I mean, at least mostly handled OBJ. And I think that Matt Stafford is a big enough name in the locker room that Davante, will want to play his best ball with him. I mean, this is a team that can push into the playoffs. So I think there is some potential here for him to really come through and make this a better team. Now, and I'm not saying that I'm a
good,
Davante
but
Adams fan. I just think the Rams are going to benefit from this.
no, you're a Mike Williams fan, but no, I mean it's a big move for the Rams. But again, my point is that like there are levels to this. So I'm just pulling it up right now, real quick.
Right. Okay.
1, 2,
Well, in the
3,
meantime,
4,
just
5.
get ready, everybody. When Mike Williams goes to his new team, wherever that may be, we're going to do a Mike Williams special. It'll be like a 1-hour tribute to Mike Williams because
The
we love him
Rams,
here.
the Rams currently sit at the 9th best odds at plus 2,100 to win the Super Bowl. So that's my point. Is like, yeah, I mean, there's 14 teams make the playoffs now, and the Rams are a good team. McVay's a good coach. All that they're gonna make the play. But you said, "Oh, it makes sense in the West Coast. Go to the West Coast in 2 years when you retire, dude." Like, I have no I have no use for receivers and all this crap. So,
Right.
yeah, whatever.
Okay, that's
It'll
fair.
work
We're
in the
not going
regular
to see
season.
eye to eye on Davante Adams, I think.
He'll work in the regular
But
season and help out in the playoffs like he has his whole career. He's never made a Super Bowl. That's cool. He'll never get to do media day. That's fine.
Right. That's fair. All right. Well, one more guy, and I want to save him for last because I know that there's some controversy over this, and I know, of course, he's going to your team, the New England Patriots. It's defensive tackle Milton Williams, 4-year signing here to the Patriots. It's a big deal. It's a lot of guaranteed money. But I think this is going to be really impactful. He had a career high 5 sacks in the regular season in 2024. He had a career high tying 2 sacks in the Super Bowl against Kansas City. He played in all 17 games last year, recorded 24 tackles, 34 QB pressures, which is a career high, 7 tackles for losses, and of course those 5 sacks I mentioned. So he's a big part of why Philadelphia was the NFL's #1 total defense last season. So I think he's earned this. But I want to hear your thoughts, Ryan, about the signing of Milton Williams to the Patriots. Because before this year, I wouldn't think he was worth this type of money, but he had a career year last year, and he was incredibly impactful on the team that won the Super Bowl. So how can you not be a little bit excited about that?
Yeah, so I'll start on the financial part, and then I'll talk about the player for a minute, and then I'll just talk about the impact on the Patriots. So I'll move to those 3.
Okay.
I know people are up in arms about the money he got, saying he doesn't deserve it. And I'm going to take the Patriots aspect out of this. Well, let me start with the Patriots aspect. First of all, as a Patriots fan, I'm glad he got the money because the Patriots are 31st in cap spending or in actual true cash spending over the last 10 years in the NFL. So about time they ponied up and paid somebody.
Right.
So there's that part of it. But the other part is like people know the cap increased by $23.8 million, right? That it's a record cap. And like this is the thing that people do mistake all the time. I know he's the 3rd highest paid defensive lineman now, and I know that he's not the 3rd best defensive lineman in football, but that's not what that means. It just means it was his time. Because in 2 years from now, it's just like, 2 years ago, in Boston, Jaylen Brown became the highest paid player in the NBA history. I think he's like the 4th or 5th now or whatever. Like he got passed by Jason Tatum, this is how sports works. They keep making more money. The caps keep going up. People keep getting paid. So he's paid like that right now because it was his turn. It was the timing. He also hit at a time when the Patriots had $125 million in cap space when they needed like a really big like splash signing. And like I said, there's not a lot of skill position guys. So this is a guy who can rush the quarterback from the inside. The Patriots interior defensive lineman or best interior defensive lineman is now going on year 2 of dealing with blood clots. So in Christian Barmore. So his status is up in the air. So they can't go in without him. Devon Godchow was a freaking pill in the locker room last year, and so they ripped him out because they wanted him gone. Like, there's a whole bunch of reasons that he got paid, and it's not just paid because of your past performance. So there's that. So I don't think it's an outlandish signing because, again, I think in 2 years we'll look at it and you guys he'll be like the 13th highest paid, and people will forget. So it just is what it is right at this moment. Now, in terms of in terms of the player. I mean, he was great last year. I mean, he had an insanely high win rate as a interior pass rusher.
Hmm.
And he's really weak against the run. He's a little light. I think he's 290, which for an interior defensive lineman is light. So he is susceptible against the run.
Hmm.
But beyond that, the two big unknowns with him are I think he only played 50% of the snaps last year, so he doesn't play a full workload, which with that money and on this defensive line, he's going to have to play at least 75%. He's not going to get
Right.
the same spells he did, and he's not
Right.
playing Jordan Davis. Like
Right.
those things are huge question marks. Like, what does it look like when he's the guy that can key on a little bit more? And now the
Yeah.
Patriots add Harold Landry. Keon White will be in his third season if Barmore's healthy. Like, I mean, you got enough. But that's still not the Eagles line, right? So we know that. But the other thing I really like about him, because the Patriots brought in a lot of hardworking character guys. If you look at the stuff they brought in, Spillane
They did.
is a complete uh, huge factor as a run defender. Harold Landry has lost his step, and he still puts up sack numbers, but his pass rush win rate is way down. But if you
Yeah.
watch the film, he sets the edge, which the Patriots did not do last year. So they're trying
Right.
to build like a much more dependable system there. And they're trying to bring in more good locker room guys because they've had an issue last couple of years. And from all
Yeah.
the reports I've heard about Milton is that he is a guy who loves football. He's a hard worker,
Right.
no
That's what I
character.
heard too.
This
Yeah.
guy is not somebody you got to worry about his motor. He's going to put the work in. He's going to do all that. So I think he's a good fit there. So I think it's ultimately a part of a good puzzle for the Patriots. I think it's the right move. Again, like I said, for your Bears, like you can't. You're not finding that elite pass rusher. Josh Sweat, I was somebody I would have liked him to go after, but whatever. I'll take anybody off that. After what we watched last year, I'll take anybody off that Eagles line.
Yes, right. Yeah, give me anybody.
So
Give me the
you know,
water boy who gave them water and they took during timeouts. I don't care. I want some of that juju in my team.
and here's the thing that happens. Football is a game that evolves, right? So you have uh, there's kind of these little mini periods that happen just because the league catches up and players get, transformed differently. And I do think, as much as I hate it, we are seeing a little bit of a renaissance of running backs. And the other
Yeah.
thing we're seeing in the NFL and we saw this in the late 2010s, and it kind of went away over the last 5 to 10 years, was that, we those Giants teams made people fall in love with being able to rush the passer from the inside. And that kind of went away until Chris Jones
Yeah.
came
Right.
back. We saw Chris Jones do it again. People got reminded, like, whoa, what a weapon that is to have that.
Yeah.
The edge guys are
Absolutely.
great, but if you can get that pressure up the middle. And so I think we're going to
It's
see more of these
game
interior
over.
guys. Aaron Donald's
Right.
another one, right? You got Aaron Donald, you got Chris Jones, you got these guys who inside can get after him. If you can find a guy who can do that, it is a weapon to have, because you got, there's more bodies in there, but it's a more direct route to the quarterback. Um,
Yep.
so I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of this. I think it's showing kind of the evolution, and with the sack heavy teams, we've seen a little bit of defensive resurgence the last 2 or 3 years again in the NFL. So, and again, I just think the market dictated this. I think there's just not enough blue chip outside skill guys that someone like him was due to get paid. And the fact of the matter is that the Patriots got to overpay to get guys right now. So we had that
Well,
report earlier in the day that
it's the
Carolina was
situation.
finalizing a deal. The Patriots come
Right.
in, up the money, and get them. So the
Yeah.
market, you're worth what the market dictates you're worth.
Yeah, you got to get guys you got to get if you want to win, right? I mean, the problem is that you can't. They're not 1-to-1. It's what's available and what you need in your team. I think honestly, I picked him and I left him for last because I wanted to have your thoughts first. But I think this is a great move by the Patriots. I think this is a perfect move in order to build around. I mean, he has the same strength of character as well as he has strength on that line, and he had a career year, but there's nothing that says he can't repeat that, again. So I love it, and I don't mind paying more. I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, every year, we see so much of the streaming rights going to the NFL and all that cap space is going to keep going up, right? It's just going to keep going up. And I think that at this time, you got to spend money in order to win games. It's just the bottom line. You can't be fiscally responsible. Like, for instance, the 49ers, I don't know what they're doing out there because they're basically going to wait until there's nobody left, and they will have nobody left. So, yeah, I like this. You got to spend up in order to get those guys to build your team around, and he can be a lightning rod here that can build that defense and be a great locker room guy as well. So kudos to the Patriots for making a really shrewd move here, taking a big figure from that Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles defense. All right, that gets us to the end of the show. Let's hit the air horn on the show. All right, Ryan, why don't you give us your social media so people can follow you?
Okay, I got no clever shots on the sign out today. I'm sick. I want to go lay down. Follow me at Ryan Whitfield, any in my tagline here.
Yeah, go follow him and engage, because he will engage back. You can find me at FB. /Twitter. I'm sorry, I'm not 100 years old. I didn't mean to say that. And you can find me at Football Garbage Time page on Facebook. And you, as usual, I'm just kind of going to mumble my way through this. As usual, thank you for coming out and wasting time with us. Until next time, enjoy your NFL season. No Andy remark here at the end?
I'm barely hanging on. I'm dying.
Okay. Ciao, everybody.